Hello. I'm Sarah Newman. I'm the director of the APG, and I'm delighted to welcome you to Google this evening for our penultimate Noisy Thinking of the year. I want to start with saying a couple of really important thank yous. First of all to Google, the title sponsor of the APG Creative Strategy Awards and our very lovely host for this evening, and to our friends at Flamingo, who support Noisy Thinking on an ongoing basis, and I think the whole community is very grateful to you for that. I was going to start by saying it's been a momentous day for planning, but one or two other little momentous events of a legal kind seem to have rather caught up with us. So I'll kind of scotch that for the moment. And then, of course, there was the weather. I understand Liverpool Street Station was closed. It's chaos around Waterloo. So all I can say is how amazing that all of you got here, and how absolutely delighted we are that you are here, because it's an incredibly important evening for the APG and for the community, notwithstanding. So we're going to talk about the right to disconnect this evening, and I want to make it clear that this is not an evening about agency, loveliness, or kind of a working nirvana. It's concrete and it's doable, and for us it's about making working life happier and more constructive and more productive, more creative, and better for all of our mental well-being. And we like to think of ourselves as a strong community, and this is essentially about the community coming together to try and make things better. So let's begin. There will be sort of two halves to this evening. First of all, we're going to hear from our chair, Matt Tanter, who is the newly minted head of strategy at Mother. And he's going to talk about what we've been doing over the last year or the year or so to bring us to this evening. And he's going to also speak from the heart about why he thinks it's so important. Then we'll hear from Vicky Holgate, also newly appointed, this time with the most wonderful title. She's Effective Creative Excellence Director at Diageo. And I think it's absolutely brilliant, both for Vicky and for us as a community, that one of our preeminent planners and leading lights of the APG has got such an amazing job at a top client company. So Vicky will in fact not be talking about booze, thank goodness. She will be talking about the right to disconnect in some detail. And then we will go on to our other three speakers, and I will introduce them shortly. But without more ado, Matt Tanter.
Hello, yeah, slightly different noisy thinking tonight, which hopefully, and thank you again through rain and thunderstorms for making it here. Since being involved in the APG, either as part of the audience or part of the committee, I've always said that it's the letter G which is the most interesting for me in the APG, that of a group and a community, and furthering and enriching and supporting the community of strategists and strategy is one of, if not the founding principle of the APG that we continue to deliver against year in, year out. And I can tell you there's a committee of people and people in the room and all of you who continuously think about how we further the technical ability of our discipline, the wisdom, the collective knowledge, and create a sustainable impact and value for our discipline moving forward. We continuously think of ways to help people make better work and better careers for themselves. But if there's one thing that struck us, I guess, at the turn of the year as a committee that was absolutely critical for us to tackle was the sustainability of us as planners, but us as people, was mental well-being. And I've always thought that whether it's because planners are people who are curious by nature, incredibly empathetic, sensitive, strong-minded, carry a lot of a burden upon their shoulders, or whether it's simply because we as planners are at a point of pressure and workload in the industry and the agency we work with, that dealing with mental health and the issues that face us is particularly pertinent for us as a group. Now, we as an APG, as a community, are not experts in this field. We've worked with a number of organisations who really are experts, and we know, and we've had a lot of discussion with the wider leadership team we'll talk about in a second, about how we have to recognise the very complex and different spectrum from clinical mental illness, through stress, through anxiety, through to mental well-being on a daily basis because of stressful and busy lives. So we don't profess to know everything and have all the answers and to be a destination for that, but what we felt we had to do was to start a conversation amongst ourselves as a community to recognise it. And so it started with a dip of a toe in the water at the Crown pub in Clerkenwell, where we invited people to come if they so wished, an evening where Paul Phillips would talk through the brain science behind mental health issues, where we discussed the behavioural aspects and how people of different positions find themselves with issues of mental health. And we shared some quite, close to home stories of planners from the likes of Cat Wiles about the issue itself. And I have to say it was candid, it was honest, it was moving, it was quite intimate, and the response back from that evening was overwhelming from the 100 or so people in the room, and it made us certain that we had to take further steps into it. And so we invited 30 or 45, I think, of the CSOs, heads of strat from around London and indeed outside of London, around the country, to an event where we put it on the table, and many of you are here tonight as a result of that, so thank you. And the aim of that was those 35 or 45 strategic leaders look after hundreds, if not thousands, of strategists in the industry, and if they could begin to make a change to how they recognise and dealt with the mental health and well-being of their teams, then we can make a big difference to the people on a daily basis. And so from that, we again shared stories, and it was refreshing to hear what agencies were already doing, alarming to hear what agencies weren't doing. But we left the room collectively as a group of leaders of strategy to really try and make a difference into what we were going to do for you, for ourselves, moving forward. We then embarked on a training program. So we've trained over 30 CSOs and heads of strat on a day of mental health workshop to understand how they needed to lead, recognise, identify and be more aware of the varying degrees of mental health issues. We've embarked on a training scheme where we've trained over 20 strategists of different varying levels of management position in mental health first aid, and we commit to continue to fully fund that from the APG funds that we've raised over the years, as we're a not-for-profit organisation looking to put that back into you as a community. So if you're interested in that, please do get in touch. But one of the things we were also really passionate about doing was not just being there at the point of an issue occurring and problems arising, but actually trying to take a step into solving maybe the problem in the first place and create a working culture which is more conducive and more supportive of people with mental health issues, and indeed preventing those mental health issues being triggered by what is a more systemic problem in how we work. And that's what tonight is about. It's about tackling what we know and feel, and probably some of you are running back to the agency afterwards to work on a pitch, is a 24/7 quite pervasive working environment which has established itself as normal when really in reality it is anything but. The right to disconnect is about us having something, the right to do something, not something that's nice to do, to step away, to disconnect in order to reconnect with ourselves, with our family, and ultimately with our creativity to be more impactful and effective as people. And we're here to ask both the strategic leaders of London and you as strategists to demand it. We have ideas and we have behaviours which may seem alarmingly simple, but hopefully can give a framework of a step towards what could be a better and more conducive working culture. Someone said brilliantly the other day, Michael Lee from VCCP, sometimes we're our own worst examples, not enemies, and we all need to lead by example to be better, aiming and creating a better working conditions. And often I've thought we talk so relentlessly about creating cultural impact through the work we make, but surely we should start by making a cultural impact on the people we work with and their lives. And for me, that's what tonight's all about. So without further ado, Vicky's going to talk through the ins and outs of the right to disconnect before we go on to agency speakers. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you all very much for coming. The stat I'm going to show you now, I still find quite shocking every time I look at it. Some of you will have seen it before. But the stats say that 1 in 6 of us at any time are suffering from the symptoms of mental ill health. And it doesn't take very long for us to then think about how many people we have in our department or how many people we have in our agency to realise that actually this is probably touching the lives of a number of people that we're currently working with, or possibly even ourselves. It's a big number. There are lots of reasons that sit behind it. And, you know, Matt mentioned earlier, there will be biological reasons why we are predisposed to mental ill health. There will also be events that happen to us that might push us in that direction. But there are also environmental factors. And there is one environmental factor that can act as both a trigger and also as an accelerant of mental ill health. And that is, as the heading of tonight's evening will have told you, but is our 24/7 always-on work culture. Now, it's something that's a brilliant thing. You know, mobile technology, being able to be in contact with all your colleagues the whole time is fantastic. It's brilliant, it's liberating, it's all those wonderful things, but it can also be a curse. And I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced those feelings of feeling almost compelled to look at your phone, knowing that there's an email there, knowing that it's work-related, knowing that this is actually midway through Sunday afternoon and actually you're supposed to be doing something with the family. And it's constantly invading our lives. So it can be brilliant, but it can also be quite dangerous. Myers-Briggs did a study a couple of years back which said they found that the sending and receiving of work-related emails on vacation, in the evening, late at night, first thing in the morning, contributed significantly to how stressed they were. Now, I don't think we actually needed Myers-Briggs to do that study and tell us that. I think we probably all feel that. But it is one of the things that is significantly contributing to the levels of stress that we all feel. And there is a cost to that. It's a big cost. This is the amount that it costs every business every year per employee. So if you think of you've got an agency of 100 people, every one of those employees is costing £1,000 in mental health costs to your business. So you can easily do the maths for your particular business. This was actually some work done by the government. This is a figure for the information and communications business, so it varies by different sectors, but this is for our sector, if you like. And that's a hell of a cost per head in your agency. Now, that cost actually breaks down, and I found this really interesting, looking at how that actually breaks down. And I think when you think about mental ill health, probably one of the first things you think about is people who might have to be off for a while, and there will be costs associated with that, and you might have to cover for them, and how's that going to work? And indeed, absenteeism is a big part of that. Absenteeism is about 25% of the cost of mental ill health to businesses. Staff turnover is another big area. So obviously, if people decide they don't want to work in your environment anymore, they want to leave, you need to replace them. That also costs. But the thing that really surprised me was the cost of presenteeism. So presenteeism is people who are turning up for work, but they're actually not working effectively or to their full potential. They might look like they're working, but actually they're probably not necessarily being able to concentrate or do the job to the degree that we would like them to do or that they would like to do. Depression and anxiety are probably two of the key types of mental health issues that people could possibly be facing. They're the kind of the big ones. And both of those have been found to lead to a creative block. Now, if we've got people coming into work and sitting there and not able to think creatively, that's a real problem for our industry, because our industry's lifeblood is creativity. It's actually what makes our industry so brilliant. It makes it so exciting, and it actually makes our product something of real value and real power. And actually, if we're constricting that, then that is a real issue. So how has this happened? So for anyone that doesn't know, these are from Doctor Who. They're the Weeping Angels. What happens with the Weeping Angels, they basically want your energy and to kind of suck your life force out of you, and they creep up on you, but they creep up on you really, really fast. And if you could stare at them without blinking, then they are motionless and they're held in stone. But the minute you blink, they rush forward, and the next time you open your eyes, like a second later, they'll be there right in front of you. And I think that's what's kind of happened to us with our always-on working lifestyle and mental illness. I think we've all blinked, and suddenly it's caught up with us. And so now I think is the time we need to do something about it. So what can we do? Excuse me. We need to look at, we've already looked, and Matt talked about some of the things that we've been doing to help support people who are already exhibiting symptoms of mental ill health, and that's really, really important, and having a greater level of understanding is fundamental. But actually what we really need to do is address some of the root causes, and there is that one big environmental factor that is sitting there begging for us to do something about it. And unless we actually try and make a fundamental change to that, then I don't think we're really going to make a difference. And if we can do it, we can get our industry back to the industry that we know and love. And hopefully it will also be an industry that the next generation will want to know and love as well. We've put together a short video to sum up the right to disconnect and why we think it works and why it's so important. So we really need to allow people that right to disconnect so that their brains can relax, can rest, recuperate, be more stimulated, and they can actually fulfill the creative potential that they want, that we want, that the industry needs. We need to do it for the people that work for us, but also, to be honest, we need to do it for ourselves as well. We spent a lot of time talking to experts, so people who really know this stuff inside out. We also, as many of you here will know, we've consulted with a lot of you about your views on this, and we've spoken with people, and you'll hear from some of them tonight, who've already started putting some practices in place to create a better working environment within their agencies. And what we've come up with under the right to disconnect are 4 key disconnecting behaviours, we've called them. 4 things that we can all do, that we can all put in place. And these are the 4 disconnecting behaviours. If we can do these, then we'll make a massive step towards changing that environment and changing the culture. 8 to 8 emails, fixed and flexed hours, holiday equals holiday, and leave loudly. And I'll just go through each of those and what they mean. 8 to 8 emails. Basically, we're suggesting that no emails should be sent after the hour of 8 o'clock in the evening or before 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you want to go hardcore on this, you can. You can get IT to set up systems so that any emails are sent are held and actually aren't released till 8 o'clock in the morning. But equally, it can be done by creating an agreement between everybody that actually it's something that you will try and avoid doing at all costs. And also, importantly, if you send an email at that time, you certainly wouldn't expect anyone to open it or read it or do anything about it. So that's 8 to 8 emails. Fixed and flexed hours. In our industry, and there's been talk about this recently, it is important that we meet face to face and we have meetings and we discuss and we bounce ideas off each other. The idea behind fixed and flexed hours is that there are fixed hours when everybody's in the office, say between 10 and 4, for example, but the flex bit is that there's flex around that. So if you want to come in, you can do 9 to 5 if you want, but if you want to come in at 8, you could leave at 4. If you want to come in at 10, you could leave at 6. What it does is allow people to do a school drop-off in the morning, or pick the kids up from school on their way home, or allow that plumber to come round first thing, or if their circadian rhythm suggests that they're an early morning person, they can come in early, and similarly, if they want to, they can work late. So it just allows people to work to their natural rhythm, not just the rhythm of the office as it has been. Holiday equals holiday is fairly self-explanatory, but probably something that I think most people fail at on a continual basis. We should respect the holidays of everyone that works for us, and actually also, again, respect our own time when we have the chance to go on holiday. It should be possible to brief people before you go and then turn everything off. And then pick it up again with a handover on the way back. With all of these, with 8 to 8 emails, with the holidays, you know, if there is an emergency, and sometimes there are emergencies in our business and we have to deal with those, then you can always pick up the phone to someone. What's really interesting is that when that is given as an option to people, quite often people who would have sent an email actually won't pick up the phone because they don't actually think it's really an emergency, or it can wait till tomorrow morning or the next week. But at least it gives a way out for when there is something genuine. And finally, leave loudly. None of this will work unless it happens from the very top down. So unless the C-suite embrace this and properly embrace this and do it really overtly and leave loudly, we actually stole, but that's a good thing, isn't it? From another agency who told us that this is exactly what they do, is they make sure that when they go home, they say they're going, they say goodbye to people, they make sure that everybody knows, because if you can see it happening from the top, you'll copy that behaviour all the way down through the organisation. So those are our 4 key disconnecting behaviours. What we're asking of everyone, of all of you, of all the agencies across our industry is 2 things. 1, please sign your agency up to show your support for the right to disconnect, and that you agree with it and you would like to try and create a better atmosphere within your agency. And please also commit to trialling these 4 behaviours. Now, they will work differently in different agencies, and we're well aware of that. And it might be some places feel they want to go more hardcore, and some want to be a bit more relaxed, or some want to flex those hours in a different way. that's fine. But by trialing them, hopefully you will find that they do work. They are free to do. None of these things actually cost money. They might require a conversation with a client, but other than that, they're essentially free to do. So we would encourage you very much to do these two things. And hopefully you'll hear very shortly from people who have already been trying these with great success.